Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by, and at the end of this video, if you like my content, if you get value from the content, kindly drop a comment, like, share and subscribe. So today we'll be looking at how to create date table in Power BI. Okay, so you may be asking, why do I need a date table? Because my data already has a date column. Why do I need to create a special date table? So some of the benefits of having a date table is that it enhances data modeling and reporting capabilities. What do I mean by that? So I'll give us three main benefits of having a date table, right? So the first one is that it enables you to leverage on Power BI's time intelligence functions such as total year till date, total quarter till date, same period last year, and things like that. Okay. Another benefit is that with a date table, you can create custom fiscal calendar year that aligns with your organization's financial year. That is, if your organization's financial year doesn't start from January, because there are a few organizations that financial year start from, say, March, April, things like that. Also, a date table can help you handle gaps in your data. For example, if your data lacks date for, if your data has gap for specific date, that will help to prevent errors in any calculations you may be attempting to do with date. Okay, so now how do we create a date table? So the first thing is you come to your data model and then you click on new table. So there's a function in Power BI that helps us easily create this table, and that is called the calendar function. So I'll give my table date and then I'll call the calendar function. So with the calendar function, there are two arguments that it takes, the start date and the end date. So for this date table, I'll be creating a dynamic date table. What do I mean by dynamic? Because, for example, let's say the current data I have starts from 2016 to 2020. What happens if I add data that goes back to 2013, or data that goes as far as 2025, So if you make the date table dynamic, it will be able to readjust itself to recalculate the date depending on the years you give to it. So let's see how we do that. And the first thing you write is date, because we are writing, we want to create a date column, which is the first one we want to do. So what do I want to do? I want to extract year, and I want to get the minimum year from a particular column in my data, and the column I'll be using resides in my fact table, which is my transaction fact table. So I'll go to facts and transactions, and the column is the order date column. Yeah, that's the column I want to use. So what this is saying is, okay, get the minimum year from this date, my date column, and I want the first day of the first day of the first month of that year. Okay, I'll close this, put a comma. So I've missed two commas here. So I close this year and then do that. So the next thing now is the end date. Now, the same thing will apply for the end date, but instead of minimum now, I'll be using the maximum, because I want to go from the minimum date in that column to the maximum date that I have in that column. So the same format, I'll use date, year, and now I want the maximum year in my column, which is the fact table for my transactions, and the other date. Okay, so I close this, and then I want the 12th month and the last day of the 12th month, which is 31. I close that, and then I close my calendar function, hit enter, and voila, we have our date column created for us. So we can see this comes with the date and the time. I do not want the time, so what do? I highlight and come to format here, and then you can choose any format you want, but I usually like to go for the short format here, DDMMYYY. That okay. Now, so that is done. The next thing we would want to do is to create additional columns for my table. So one of the first columns I usually like to create is the year column, because you know this one has the day, the year, and the month. So I like to have just the year, the quarter, the month name, and things like that. So to do that, you come here, click on new column, and then I want the year now. Year equals to, and I'll use the year function to extract the year from my date column here. So I'm referencing the date table and the date column just like this. So this is saying I'm referencing the date column, the date table, which is the table we are creating, and then this column, the column 1 of the date table. And then you close that and hit enter, and you have your year. Next, I want to add quarter. Okay, because I may want to do calculations like quarter on quarter growth, quarter till date growth, and things like that. So for my quarter is the same technique. You do quarter, and then you do my date table and my date column. You select it, you close the bracket, you hit enter, and you have that. Now, next, for month, now, so first we need to do month number. Okay, I'll use the month function, same method, my date table, my date column, select, close my function, hit enter, and you have that, right? This is the month number. But next I want the month name. Let's see how we do that. The reason I didn't do the function that we have for the month cannot directly give us the month name. So we have to get the month number first, and then we format that to give us the month name. So to get the month name, we will do month name equals to format, and then we'll be formatting the date column, the date table, the date column, right? And the method I'll be using is MMM, because I don't want the month name in full. So I'll just put MMM, close, hit enter, and I have that. Great. Now, let's get for the day. For day, we'll use the day function as well. Open date table and my date column, select, close, enter, and you have that. I hope you're getting it. Okay. So the next thing we have for the day, you can go on and on and on and create as many columns as you want. The next column I'd like to have is the weekday name and the weekday number. So I start with the week number or weekday number. So the weekday number equals to weekday of my date table and my date column. Select that, close, and hit enter. Now, the way the week day number is formatted is, let me go back there to understand. Okay, so there's a return type, right? Which usually goes from 1, 2, and 3. Now, for if you have option 1 as your return type, you have Sunday as 1 through to 7, Saturday being 7. If you go for option 2, you have Monday as 1, right? And Sunday as 7. And then option 3, you have Monday as 2, like that. You understand what I mean? So I usually like to use option 2 or return type 2 because I want my Monday to start, I want my week to start from 1, which is Monday, and then Saturday to be 6, and my Sunday to be 7. So I want my week to start from 1, which is Monday. So I usually like to go for the return type 2. Close this and hit enter, right? Great. So the next thing is the next column will be the weekday name. So weekday name, we will format the date table and the date column, right? And again, I want my day in the short form. I don't want the full day name, so I just do DDD. If I do DDDD, like D in 4 places, I have the full day name, right? But that is not what I want. I want it in the short form, MON for Monday, SAT for Saturday, and things like that. So I just use DDD, hit enter, and I have this. Now, see what I was saying about the week number. My Friday is 5, my Saturday is 6, my Sunday is 7, and my Monday is 1. If you use the other return type, which is 1, for example, if I use 1, my Monday would have been 2, and then my Sunday would have been 1. But I just like it this way. Okay. Now, the next and the last column I usually like to have is to check whether my weekday is a weekend or a weekday, if you get what I mean. Yeah, so I want my Sundays and Saturday to be classified as weekend and other days to be classified as weekday. So what I do is I just say, or you say it's weekend, so that it's not too long. It's weekend, and I say equals to. Now here we will use a function called the if function, right? The if function. And what this does is it checks whether a logical condition is met. If the condition is met, if it is satisfied, it returns a true value. And if the condition is not satisfied, if it is not met, it returns a false. Now, the condition I want to check here, the logical condition, is to check whether my weekday number, which corresponds to my weekday name, if it is greater than 5, if it is either 6 or 7, I want it to return weekend. And if it is less than 5, I want it to return weekday. So how do we check that? Now we have written if. Now we check if my date of my week day number, if my date table, if my weekday number column in my date table, right, is greater than 5, which is when it is 6 or 7, right, I want it to return weekend. Otherwise, I want it to return weekday. Now, let's go through that again. If my weekday number in my date table is greater than 5, if it is 6 or 7, then this is my true value. I want it to be a weekend. If this condition is not true, meaning if it is less than 5, I want it to return weekday, less than or equal to 5, we return weekday. Greater than 5, we return weekend. Sorry, here should be weekday, not weekend. And then we close and you hit enter. Now, I have all the columns I need in my date table, right? The next thing we will do is to format the month name, right? And the weekday name because they are usually not properly formatted. Let me show us what I mean here. So for example, these are the columns we just created, right? So let's say we bring the month name to the chart. Let's visualize it. I have April, August, December, February, it's not properly um, formatted the way our months are formatted from January, February, March, April, May, and June, right? So to be able to do that, I'll show us how to do that in a moment. The same goes for the weekday name. So if we check the weekday, you see Friday, Monday, Saturday, it is not properly formatted. So I think this arrangement is done alphabetically, but that's not what we want, right? So to be able to have the correct format, you come here, you click on the weekday name, and then you come to under column tools, you come to sort by column, right? So we want to sort this column, the weekday, with the weekday name column by the weekday number, if that makes sense. So because the number goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we want to sort the name also in that order. The same for the month name. Click on the month name, come to sort by column under column tools, and then the month name, we want to sort it by the month number, right? Great. So let's have a look at our visualization. You can see now that the month name are now properly arranged. So we have from January, February, March, April, May, up until December. The same for the weekday name. We have it now properly arranged. If you don't do that, by the time you go and use the date in your visualizations, it will not be properly formatted. So I usually like to do that before I use the table at all. Okay. So the next thing I like to do, even though we have created it as a date table, right? We used a lot of calculated columns in this. I usually like to still tell Power BI that, okay, this is my date table, right? I want it to recognize this table as my main date table. How do we do that? You come to your data view, you go to table tools. Under table tools, you see this option called mark as date table. Now, see what the description says. Select a table to be used for the dates in this report. This table will be referenced if you set up data hierarchies and or time intelligence. So this is the table it will always reference whenever we are using any of the DAX time intelligence functions, such as the total year till date, total quarter till date, same period last year, same period this year, and things like that. So to mark this, you just click here and then select mark as date table. Now it will ask you what column in the table. See, it says select a column to be used for the date. The column must be of the data type date and must contain only unique values. Now, the main column that we have here in this table that is of the data type date and has only unique value 1 year per each month, per 1 day per each month per each year is the date column, right? So you select that, validated successfully, and you click on OK. And you're done. You have your date table. So we can use this date table however we want in our report. So you want to create reports based on quarter, You want to create reports to check how, for example, say if you have more sales during the weekend than during the day, you know, just check trends over time, over period. You can use your date as you want. Now, you remember when I was creating the my date table, I had referenced my facts table transaction, my facts table, which is my transactions table, and I have used the order date column in that table. Now, this is my transactions table and this is my order date column. I have other columns that are date columns, right? Which is the due date, which is shipment date and things like that. So it's very important when you're creating your date table to specify the particular column and the particular table that you are referencing. Referencing meaning that that's the column you want this table to be created from. So what this will do is it will go to my order date column, check for the maximum year, check for the minimum year, and use that to create my date range. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so thank you for that. That's how you create your date column. So if I come again and add more data or more record to my transactions table, which is I had the minimum year we have here is 2010 and the maximum year we have is I think 2013. Yes, 2013. So if I come to this my transaction table and I add more data, for example, I add data for 2014, 2015, 2016, and the likes, and here I add data for 2009, 2007, 2006. I do not have to recreate my date table because here we have made it dynamic by using the minimum and the maximum functions. So what it will just do is go to that table, pick the minimum date, pick the minimum year, pick the maximum year, and recalculate my date table for me. And that is what makes it dynamic. I hope you have enjoyed this. Kindly drop a comment, like, and share. Thank you, and have a good day.